Mentioning Triple G, I just want to get your quick thoughts on the press conferences that him and Canelo just had for their third fight coming September 17th, I believe. What did you make of Canelo's energy? And it seemed like he was very aggressive and like he's making things, he's taking things very personal. Gennadi's just like, this is just another fight. You know, although he will say his things that Canelo says, he says them to the reporters, maybe not in his face, but where do you think Canelo's coming from, and do you think that his claims and his emotions are valid?
You know, I was surprised at how angry Canelo was. I mean, if Canelo, out of anyone, should be happy that Triple G fought him, because the decisions, definitely, he got a lot of love from the judges on those fights. They were very controversial decisions. And so Canelo, out of everyone, should be like happy that Triple G won.
And he's coming off a loss too.
And he's coming off a loss, yeah. So figure that this is a huge fight still for the sport of boxing. The trilogy, one of the biggest trilogies that we've seen, because both guys have huge fan bases, global superstars. And when you bring two of those fan bases together, you saw the success we had for the first two fights. And I think you'll see that same type of energy for this trilogy. So I was a little bit surprised that he was as angry as he was. And then Gennady is looking at this as just, look, it's like one more shot to prove that he's better than Canelo. I think most of the fans and the media saw that, especially in the first fight. The second fight, you know, if it would have been a draw and Triple G kept his titles, I thought that would have been fair, even though I thought he still edged that second fight. But with Canelo taking the titles in the second fight, that's when everything, that's when Gennady got pissed off at just that whole system up there. So now he's got his ability to prove one more time in the ring up there in Vegas.
We've already spoken about the actual fight so many times, the first, the second, and even heading into the third one, but a little bit of insight in terms of negotiations without giving away any kind of secrets. What kind of advice would you give to a guy like Terence Crawford, who's trying to close in on the Errol Spence fight? It seems like it has stalled from what Stephen Espinosa kind of hinted at, but he's definitely working very hard to make that fight happen. It's probably one of, if not the biggest fight in boxing, one of the biggest ones.
It's a big fight,
right there with Canelo and Golovkin. Just your thoughts on those negotiations? Any advice or insight you could give them on trying to make that fight happen?
I think that's a tremendous fight. Both guys are star fighters at the top of their game, and so that's the type of fight you want to make happen, for both their careers. And so if Terence couldn't get, if he was complaining about the fights that he wasn't getting at Top Rank, then he's got to be a little bit flexible in order to get those type of fights. When we going after Canelo, remember Canelo had vacated the title when he was supposed to fight Triple G. So then when the opportunity came up again in 2017 for the first one, we had to make a lot of concessions just to get him in the ring, and I would see something similar. I don't know the inside of the negotiations there, but I would say something similar, where this is a huge opportunity for Terence. If he can beat Spence, which is probably the favorite in that fight, then you have to give up a little bit to get the huge fights, to put those fights together. And that's the type of fight you don't want to let it go too long, because you never know what happens with each other's career. And right now, I think is the perfect time to try to make that fight.
Yeah, most definitely. He has a belt. Spence has 3 belts, I believe. And there's obviously a lot of money for both sides here, but in terms of concessions, if you were in his corner, just some kind of hypothetical advice, do you think that Spence has proven to be maybe the bigger draw, so therefore it should be like a 60-40, 65-35, or whatever the case in terms of the split percentage, or like what concession in particular do you feel might be able to get that kind of fight done, having been in negotiations with Canelo and Golovkin?
Without knowing what the sticking points are, I know exactly what the points were with the Triple G Canelo negotiations, but it's hard to say like one person's a bigger star and needs more percentage and all that type of stuff. I'm just looking at the overall picture. If Terence wants to get that fight done, he might, I don't know if they're talking about 50-50 or whatever, but he might have to make a couple of concessions just to get the fight done. If he wins, then he's on a whole different plateau, and then he can continue to make the money, after those fights. So it's hard to say without knowing what the points are. I'm just, generalizing,